And welcome everybody. Welcome to Mi Familia Vota analysis on where we are on the Latino vote. My name is Hector Sanchez Barba. I'm the CEO of the organization. And we have 14 offices in 6 states. We are located in Florida, Texas, Arizona, Colorado, Nevada, and California, where we have field operations. And we expanded our work this year to 3 other states in a digital way. We expanded our work to Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, obviously because of the importance of those states in this presidential election, but also because we know that the Latino vote is so critical in these spaces, and we need to make sure that as a nation, we are investing in democracy to grow the Latino political power. Today, we want to discuss some of the critical issues 2 weeks away from the most important election in the history of our democracy and in the history of the Latino community. We want to analyze where we are, where is the Latino vote, the work that we're doing, the possibilities that we see, and also some of the challenges that we see on the ground. Because we have limited time, we decided to focus this particular call on the 3 swing states where we have field operations, Arizona, Nevada, and Florida. But also I'm going to contextualize some of the work that is happening all over the nation. As Mi Familia Vota is a 501c3 and a 501c4, meaning historically we have done a lot of voter registration, GOTV, voter education, census work, youth development work in the communities, but we also have a 501c4 that is more political. And because of the historical momentum in which we are living, we decided to launch a couple of months ago the most important C4 campaign in the history of the Latino community that is called Basta Trump. And the main goal of this campaign is to make sure that we mobilize the Latino vote to get Trump out of office. So I'm going to contextualize a number of the conversation today from this perspective, but we want to make clear that there is a difference between the C3 work and the C4 work that we have in the nation. I'm going to start highlighting some of the major accomplishments that we have had so far and some of the work that is going to happen in the next 2 weeks. So for 2 months, Mi Familia Vota, almost 2 months, Mi Familia Vota has been back in the field. As an organization full of organizers, full of people that is coming from the community, we jointly voted and decided that it was so critical for the health of our democracy and our community and the future of our nation that this important infrastructure, the most important field infrastructure on civic participation that we have in the Latino community, it was important for us to be in the neighborhoods because our community needs us. We did the biggest investment on protection on COVID-related information and all the equipment, the PPE equipment that we needed, and we decided to go back to the field. That was almost 2 months ago, and the results that we have seen is incredible. Our community is eager to get the information that trusted organizations like Mi Familia Vota and others can provide, and some of our state directors are going to share some of the stories of what they have seen on the ground. The initial goal of the Basta Trump campaign that I described that we launched a couple of months ago was to invest $10 million in our community to get Trump out of office. And we are excited to announce that not only we reached that goal, but we're hoping that by the end of this year and the campaign, we're going to reach almost $14 million. It's a historical campaign, and it's a historical accomplishment, not only for our organization, but also for the Latino community. Literally, we're raising our voices to those bullies that are messing with our community, to those people that are attacking us, to those anti-immigrant voices that are constantly jailing and attacking our children and promoting hate and crimes against our community. So Mi Familia Vota is saying enough is enough. We're raising our voices, we're organizing, we're mobilizing, and we're also investing big quantities of money to make sure that we take the seat at the table that we deserve in this democracy. Also, in the last 2 weeks ahead, we're going to be spending $1.5 million on digital campaigns in 9 states the 6 states that I already described where we have operations, and also in the important swing states of Michigan, Pennsylvania, and Wisconsin. So we're very excited about this, and in a little bit, we're gonna see the videos. Other major accomplishments in Florida, we had a unique campaign where we got some of the most important information and data of unregistered Puerto Ricans that have been living there or moved to the island after Hurricane Maria and some of the horrible situations that are happening in the island to our amazing Puerto Rican brothers and sisters. So we decided to do an important campaign over there in Florida, and our dear director Soraya is gonna speak about it in a little bit. Also, we have been very strategic building powerful partnerships. We're happy that we partnered with the American Federation of Teachers in a couple of states to really make sure that together we're pushing our message forward. We also partnered with other unions, for example, with SEIU and the AFL and others, to make sure that we, as a community that we are mostly workers, working class community, that we are collaborating with important infrastructures that are pushing ahead on our policy issues and priorities, something that is also important for our organization. Also, the work of Mi Familia Vota is so holistic because, as you can see, we do everything in the organizations, but we want to make sure that we are also putting pressure with lawsuits and with the legal infrastructure. So this year, responding to all the attacks, we also arm all of these campaigns with legal elements. And we had a couple of legal lawsuits that were very important. We had one in Texas to expand democracy. And we had a major victory in Arizona, where thanks to our lawsuit, we were able, as a nation, to increase voter registration for 35,000 people in that important state. And I know that Eduardo is gonna talk about this important issue. I'm also happy to announce that we are also responding to the biggest threat that we have in the nation, that is Donald Trump, the biggest threat to our democracy and the biggest threat to the Latino community. And we also have this week, we're filing a lawsuit against Trump and his administration for voter intimidation in violation of the Voting Rights Act of 1965. So a very holistic approach on how we work to strengthen our democracy. And we're very excited that in the next 2 weeks, we're gonna be providing a lot of voter education. That's probably one of the biggest and most important elements that we have seen right now in the field, the biggest needs. There is a lot of miscommunication coming from Trump, the White House, and entities on the ground that are trying to distract our community or provide wrong information. So Mi Familia Vota is in the front lines, spending money, providing education, educating our families, etc. And in the next 2 weeks, we're gonna be showing the following videos as an example. The first one is with a focus on Latinas, the biggest hope of our democracy and our nation. Latinas are in the front lines, protecting our economy, protecting our democracy. And we know that if Latinas come out in big numbers, this is gonna make a big difference. So Christian, play the first video, please.
I'm the heart and the muscle, the caregiver, mother, the breadwinner. And I'm here to show you what I'm capable of and fight for what I'm worth, so I can keep my family safe, because I will be heard. And we aren't going anywhere. Visible, represented, a part of writing the story of this country. I will vote.
Thank you, Christian. And the second one is with a focus on Latino men, as it has been reported in the media. Higher than usual Latino men are supporting Trump. We believe that's to the need of important education, and Mi Familia Vota is leading some of this education in the field. And this commercial is with a target to Latino men. Christian? hear Christian. Christian, can you replay it? We can hear it.
No puede ser.
Just replay it, Christian, if you don't mind.
Buenas a todos, aquí estamos a ver el resumen de Trump enfrentándose con los latinos. Atención que viene el coronavirus, da conexión con el país y ahí viene Trump, que viene y nos quedamos sin trabajo por no responder a tiempo. Y ahí viene otra vez con el remate y nos quita el seguro médico. No puede ser. Este juego lo tenemos perdido con este hombre. Ya basta, Trump.
So those are a couple of messages, and obviously this is combined with the other videos that we already released that went viral. I invite you all to watch those videos that went viral that is really focused on our community, on our bylaws, on our contributions, etc. And in terms of voter education, we're excited that in the last weeks, we're going to be pushing out our voter guide, the most important voter guide in the Latino community. And to my understanding, the only one so far. Christian, if you don't mind also showing the example. There is a world of difference. I have dedicated myself for the last 25 years to policy analysis, policy priorities, policy issues in Washington, D.C. And I have never seen such a drastic difference between policy priorities that affect the Latino community as we have right now. And this is what we try to reflect in our voter guide for the Latino community, where Biden stands and where Vice President Biden and when Trump stands on each one of the issues that are top priorities for our community. And we're going to be sending mailers to all the different states where we're located, and also social media and TV, etc. So this is something that we're going to be providing. But without further ado, let me introduce, before that, todo esto lo tenemos en español. Y estamos listos para contestar preguntas en español para los medios de comunicación que están presentes. Como pueden ver, esta es la campaña más sólida en la historia de la comunidad latina desde muchas perspectivas, y estamos muy orgullosos de lo que se ha lanzado, y estas 2 semanas vamos a poner mucho esfuerzo e inversión en sacar el voto latino. With that, let me pass it on to our amazing state director in Florida, Soraya Márquez.
Buenos días. Bueno, es para mí un placer. Quiero comentarles algo de lo que estamos haciendo en la Florida, no sin antes poner en contexto un poco cómo se desarrollan las elecciones en el estado del Sol. El 17% de los votantes en este estado son latinos. Ahora somos 2.4 millones. Hemos aumentado en relación al 2016 350,000 nuevos votantes hispanos. Es muy importante destacar porque Florida es uno de los estados péndulos con mayor importancia en estas elecciones. En primer lugar, tenemos 22 millones de habitantes en el estado aproximadamente. En segundo lugar, nosotros aportamos 29 votos electorales, pero en tercer lugar, desde el 1924, todos los presidentes han ganado las elecciones, solo con 2 excepciones. El presidente número 30 de los Estados Unidos, Calvin Coolidge. Eso significa que para ganar la presidencia de los Estados Unidos hay que tomar en cuenta Florida y hay que ganar Florida. Por otra parte, es muy importante destacar que la migración ha sido determinante. La Florida ha recibido migrantes no solamente de los estados de Estados Unidos propiamente, sino de otros países de Latinoamérica. Así que esto va a ser crucial para el 3 de noviembre. A partir de si hablamos de la parte estratégica de las elecciones, no podemos dejar de hablar del corredor de la I-4. El corredor de la I-4 es el punto estratégico del estado de la Florida, donde se concentran el 43% de los votantes. Allí tenemos 5.5 millones de electores, 2 millones registrados demócratas, 2 millones registrados republicanos y 1.5 registrados independientes. El corredor de la I-4 está conformado por 6 importantes condados. El condado de Hillsborough, el condado de Orange, el de Osceola, el de Volusia, el de Paul y el de Pinellas. Viéndose de una manera muy interesante un crecimiento importante en el condado de Hillsborough que corresponde a toda el área de Tampa. Así que bueno, después de haber hablado con ustedes un poco de los puntos generales de lo que representa Florida para esta elección, quiero hablarles también de lo que hacemos aquí en Florida. Esta es la quinta elección para el equipo de Mi Familia Vota Florida y estamos bien orgullosos de poder trabajar con todo este escenario pandémico y con todas las limitaciones que hemos tenido. Hemos logrado unos resultados importantes. En la etapa virtual, que empezó en el mes de marzo, Mi Familia Vota Florida logró ofrecer a toda la comunidad hispana, yo diría que la campaña más completa y precisa educativa para elecciones 2020, donde invitamos a los oficiales electos a ser parte de estas 23 conferencias y ellos explicaban un poco cuáles eran las diferentes posiciones que íbamos a elegir en las elecciones primarias. También sumamos a estas conferencias a las oficinas de elecciones que trajeron la parte más importante de la campaña educativa, como era definir cómo es el proceso de elecciones, las alternativas para votar, las fechas importantes. Posteriormente fuimos valientes y el 1 de septiembre tuvimos el respaldo de nuestro director nacional que nos dijo hay que salir a las calles, hay que darle la oportunidad a la comunidad hispana de inscribirlos y eso fue lo que hicimos. Tuvimos unos resultados increíbles porque la comunidad hispana definitivamente estaba esperando la camiseta, el nombre de Mi Familia Vota y el respeto que ha tenido siempre la comunidad hispana por nosotros y nos dijeron aquí estamos, nos queremos inscribir. Esa fue la fase 1 que disfrutamos enormemente al ver la respuesta positiva de nuestra comunidad hispana. Posteriormente comenzamos a hacer llamadas. Aquí alcanzamos casi 450,000 llamadas, mensajes de texto, sobre 500,000 mensajes de textos en esa fase 1. Posteriormente iniciamos la fase 2 que aún no concluye porque todo concluye el 3 de noviembre. Estamos ahora trasladando a nuestra comunidad hispana para que vote temprano. Por cierto, ayer fue el inicio, el 19, del voto temprano y se desbordaron los centros de votación, señores. 3 veces más personas salieron a votar temprano que en el año 2016 en la Florida. Estamos ofreciendo transporte y aprovecho la oportunidad para invitarlos a que le permitan a Mi Familia Vota en Orlando, Tampa y Kissimmee llevarlos a votar temprano. Por otra parte, también tenemos, por supuesto, toda la estrategia preparada para el día de las elecciones, 3 de noviembre, para seguir movilizando el voto hispano, pero sobre todo, como decía Héctor, la campaña educativa es determinante. Tienen que estar abiertas las líneas para aclarar todas las dudas que tengan nuestros electores hispanos y no hay errores para cometer. Entiendan perfectamente que hasta el 24 aquí en Florida pueden solicitar su voto por correo y no tengan miedo. El voto por correo es más seguro que nunca. Y lo más importante para Mi Familia Vota es su integridad física y que usted esté siempre sano para que pueda votar y ejercer el derecho más importante que nos da el ser ciudadano de este país, como es elegir nuestro propio destino. Gracias.
Muchas gracias, Soraya. And now we have our amazing State Director from Nevada, Ceci Alvarado.
Good morning, buenos días, West Coast, and good afternoon to the East Coast. Thank you so much for joining us today. Gracias, Héctor, and thank you to Soraya for giving us that recap of all the great work that is being done in Florida as a Latina. I feel proud to be part of this amazing group of Mi Familia Vota. As a Latina, my voice more than ever is empowered. I am unable to vote, but I find my voice, and every single one of our community members that we registered to vote, I find my voice, and the programs that Mi Familia Vota is pushing to empower our Latino community to come out to vote. It is October. We are exactly 2 weeks away from Election Day. This is a historical moment for us. This is a historical moment for our Latinx community across the country, not just in Nevada. Looking at this past year, under our Prioridades program, under our Prioridades campaign, we hosted roundtables with the community. We listened to the community. We hosted roundtables with candidates that were campaigning in Nevada to earn the Latinx voice, the Latinx vote. In February, for the Nevada caucus, we mobilized, we trained youth, we trained the community on how to caucus. We were part of this process. When we move our operations to the digital space, we make calls, we reach our community to register them to vote online. And when we have the opportunity to go back to the field, we were also welcomed in Nevada by our community. We were outside of supermarkets registering eligible voters. We hosted different events to continue to educate our Latinx community and register them to vote. But our work goes beyond voter registration. Our community is facing so many challenges during this pandemic. In Nevada, we organize programs to help our undocumented community by providing groceries. We started a fund to help our undocumented community. And now that we are, only 2 weeks around elections, we have made over 500,000 calls. We have sent over 600 text messages, and we are focused on empowering Latinas to go out to vote. This Friday, we are hosting the very first Latina rally. It's a small gathering that we are hosting to empower each other. We are Latinas in Nevada said, basta Trump. Basta of all of these attacks on our communities and family separations. On Saturday, those youth that we trained to caucus will come out and vote with Familia Vota. We are hosting a caravan to the polls with youth and their families that are voting for the first time. The Latinos that we help become citizens through these past years are coming out to vote with us. We get calls every day from them asking us on how to vote and the process on how to vote by mail. We are empowering our Latinos, we're educating them, and I am very inspired to see this momentum in our Latinx community in Nevada. I'm very empowered to see that we help our election department recruit poll workers. So we have more representation at the polls. I'm empowered to see groups of Latinos organizing themselves to be at the polls, to monitor the polls, to drop off waters, to drop off snacks. This is our momentum. This election is not just a historical election, but it's a historical moment for our Latino community. We're stronger than ever, and we're ready to come out and vote in 2 weeks. Thank you, Hector.
Muchas gracias, Cecia, y gracias por todo tu trabajo. And now, Mi Familia Vota we have our headquarters in Arizona and our biggest operations in the field and national over there. And our great state director, Eduardo Sainz, is going to describe some of the work that is happening in the state. Eduardo.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Hector. Thank you so much, my colleagues, Soraya, Cecia, for sharing this wonderful work that we're all doing together. I want to start off by just sharing a very small piece of the history of Mi Familia Vota. We started in California with Proposition 187, where we wanted to make sure that our community had a voice and that our community was resilient and say no to this proposition. Unfortunately, back then, Proposition 187 became the law of the land and was able to criminalize individuals. Since then, we started to organize in California, built our political power, and sometimes history repeats itself. And in 2010, I was a college student, and history repeated itself when it comes down to SB 1070. That was very dark days for me. I was able to see how our parents, our loved ones, family members, neighbors, etc., were packing everything that they own and literally traveling to other states, going back to Mexico, etc. It was a time where hate in Arizona was the epicenter of hate of our nation. And we, Mi Familia Vota, and our organizations on the ground, we were able to tap into that fear, our commitment, and made a commitment to ensure that we could build political power for where we are today in Arizona. We've been building confidence by voting by mail. In the last 15 years, we have been asking communities of colors, Latinos, to participate and sign up on the Pebble. Our communities in Arizona, close to 80% of those participate to vote by mail. We have been building Latino political power by advocating for our work like immigration reform, border protection, border education, voter mobilization in huge numbers. And through that work, we have been able to see many victories. Often we ask, when is Arizona going to flip? Is Arizona flipping this year? And I can tell you that Arizona has been flipping for the last 6-7 years because of the work that we have been doing for the last 10 years. We were able to say basta Arpaio in 2016, one of the most racist politicians that our country has ever seen. We were able to pass an increase of the most progressive minimum wages in 2016 as well. And It was a bittersweet night in 2016 when we were able to see that Donald Trump became elected president. But there was hope in Arizona. We were able to see that there was the smallest gap between the Republican and the Democratic presidential candidate by 3 points. We historically, Arizona has been red and has been a margin of 10 double-digit points between the Republican and Democratic candidates for presidential. We remain hopeful and we remain organizing our communities by ensuring that we advocate and center those the ones more vulnerable. Ensuring that we, in 2018, were able to elect the first woman to serve as the US Senate and we haven't seen a Democratic woman to serve for the last 30 years. We were able to elect the first Latina mayor in the city of Tucson. And this year, we have been able to see record numbers of turnout when it comes down to our presidential preference, the primary election in Arizona, and then also the record numbers that we have been able to see in early voting. This has to do because of the work that we're doing on the ground, talking to community members, from ensuring that we are knocking on their doors and providing resources for the most vulnerable, from mental health to where can they find individuals, from food to bring food to their tables, and ensuring that once we connect those resources, because our community has been hit the hardest when it comes down to COVID, we invite them to participate in our democracy. And our community knows that our schools have been defunded by a Republican-led legislature for the last 30 years. And they're fed up and want to make sure that we see change. They want to make sure that our communities, our kids can thrive in our schools and that we're funding our schools to ensure that folks and our kids could thrive in this country. It's been wonderful to do this work and being able to see the 10-year anniversary of SB 1070 with Battleground State and having so many victories along the way. We have also been able to elect individuals that truly represent our values, electing those that we call movement candidates and those individuals that are now running offices and also helping us govern in Arizona. This is the vision that we had 10 years ago of a better Arizona, and here we are today. Because we have remained resilient, we have invested in our community. And the question always is asked, when would the Latino vote would show up? If we invest in the Latino vote, if we put resources behind organizations like Mi Familia Vota, our community is ready to thrive and our community is ready to participate. We need to ensure that we can empower our communities and provide that level of resources to ensure that we can thrive in this country.
Gracias, Eduardo, Soraya, y Cecia. And now I want to thank all of you, but that I think that really shows the point and the approach of Mi Familia Vota. Most of the questions that we get is from concerns about the Latino vote, but we have seen as an organization that when we do the work that our democracy needs and deserves, the Latino community comes out in historical numbers, and we're the most underrepresented, the underinvested community in the nation when it comes to democracy. So that's the work that Mi Familia Vota is doing. Christian, let's open it up for questions from the press. And if you have some, just let me know. In English and in Spanish. Yeah.
Please feel free to ask your questions, unmute to ask, or you can type them up in the chat, and I'm happy to then relay them to the audience so that we get it for the recording. While we're waiting for folks to unmute and queue, Hector, what do you see as the biggest misunderstanding about the sleeping giant, right? You hear about this every cycle. It's a bit of a cliche at this point. What are we seeing differently this cycle than we've seen in the past?
That's probably one of the questions that I get all the time from the press, and it's personally, I think it's offensive. It reminds me of that caricature that they used to portray Mexicans sleeping under a tree or a nopal. And it's lack of understanding of how imperfect democracy in the nation is, how exclusive it is for certain people. And right now we have a lot of research that shows that when it comes to democracy, the lowest investment in the nation comes to the Latino community. So everybody talks about the Latino vote, but very few infrastructures are really strategically and structurally and holistically investing in the Latino vote. For example, foundation world, the foundations in the nation, the average of spend in the Latino community overall, I'm not even talking about democracy work, is only 1%. When we talk about the political parties vote, it's an embarrassment of the lack of investment that they have done. We have seen some good signs, especially in this election from the Democratic Party, but those are structures that are exclusive, literally, mostly for the white community, and historically is the way it has been. But the amazing things that we have seen in Mi Familia Vota, and Eduardo alluded to that, and we have research, we have documentation, we have our data that really shows that when we invest on communities that have been historically ignored in the Latino community and the immigrant community, we come out in historical numbers and we outperform some of the rest of the communities in the nation. On top of that, if we add a voter suppression that is massive in the Latino community, literally just making it harder for Latinos and immigrants to participate in the democratic process, we're also fighting that to try to make it more inclusive. So when we talk about that specific offensive question about the sleepy giant, I usually like to analyze it from that perspective.
So we got two questions here, Hector. One for you directly from Suzanne Gamboa at NBC News. Have we been able to fully raise the 10 million you planned at the start of the year, and is it fully invested?
Yeah. Suzanne, thank you for the question. And Suzanne, I think you are an example of why we need Latinas and Latinos in all of the media covering these important issues. You are somebody that has been staying on top of telling our story with critical eyes. And we have been very critical of the media when they talk about the Latino vote, especially the major infrastructures and corporations. They have a very obtuse way to analyze our community. So thank you for the way you cover our community with critical eyes and always asking critical questions. In terms of your specific question about the investment, we have been able to really diversify our fundraising strategies. I don't know if Carlos, or director of development, is on the call. It has been an amazing opportunity to work with all the state directors and with the team of Mi Familia Vota to really diversify the way we fundraise. We get money from the different tables in the states, especially the 3 states that are represented here. We have been able to diversify the fundraising from foundations. And something that has been amazing, and I'm hoping that is the future of this organization, is the individual contributions, the small contributions. I think that should be the present and the future of organizations, grassroots organizations that are working in the field. So we have raised that money, and we're hoping to get to 14 million this year to invest all over the nation. In terms of spending all the money we have, as you can see, the operations through the year, we invested heavily to respond to COVID. Times of challenges represent times of opportunities, and we believe that at the end of COVID, Mi Familia Vota is going to be a more holistic organization, because even though our field operations are the strongest elements, that's what identifies and recognizes the organization as a field operation, we were able to invest in the most important tools for digital capacity, and we came back to the field. Plus, we invested heavily on digital, in TV, and all the social media elements. So all the money has been strategically invested to grow the democracy for our community. Christian?
Yep, we got one more question here from Astrid Galvan from the Associated Press, and everybody can answer this if they'd like. Can you talk about the Latino men who are supporting Trump and why you think they are drawn to him? Other than the ad that targets them, how else are you targeting those voters? Who wants to go first?
Maybe let me do a quick one. And Eduardo, I know you've been focusing some of this work in Arizona, and obviously our sisters can give us maybe a more critical eye of why men are not being rational when it comes to Latino men, some Latino men, so rational and practical about our policy priorities. That goes back to some cultural elements of machismo that are so obtuse and ignorant. We have doing analysis from that cultural point of view. And obviously that's why the work of Mi Familia Vota is so important. It's an embarrassment that some people, not only Latino men, but men in general, identify with some ignorant examples from Trump on machismo and misogyny and anti-gay policies and etc. Everything that Trump represents, the way he talks to women, the way he denigrates women, the way he has been promoting macho elements, which is an embarrassment, especially for our democracy and the point where we are. So Mi Familia Vota is really trying to take this from the root causes of the issue and promote the policy priorities that we know. The top priorities for Latino men are the economy, COVID, health, just like the rest of the nation. So that's a little bit of the approach, but that's why voter education is at the top of our agenda. Eduardo?
Absolutely. I think that just to add to that point, our work is micro-targeting voters and ensuring that we are following individual messaging when it comes down to our digital approach, social media, mailers that we're sending out. Also, we're canvassing individuals at their doors and having surveys answer and ensuring that we're also mobilizing and providing voter guides where we have different examples based on issues of the two candidates and their stance. We are also ensuring that we are doing a holistic approach when it comes down to mobilization of those voters, of talking to them through text messages, phone calls, digitally, TV, radio. We're also getting very creative when it comes down to our organizing arm of work and ensuring that we're also involving them into the advocacy work that we're doing and looking. One of the key learnings that we have found through our work has been that Latina women has a high influence on the household that are also influencing these Latino men that might be leaning towards Trump. So ensuring that we're also putting a huge effort on mobilizing and empowering Latina households and ensuring that they're also the influencers when it comes down to the families and the individuals peer-to-peer that they're influencing on showing up on election day.
Anybody else want to jump in on this before we take one more?
I can add a little bit, Christian, since in Nevada, we are running a program very specific to target Latino men over 40. And from what we have heard over the phone, because we are, our goal is to reach over 200,000 Latino men, and it's to say there's a misconception of how the economy works. And it comes with education. It's educating our Latino men on how really our economy is working and who's really building our economy, and supporting a administration that has attacked frontline workers, that has turned its back on our community. It's not a support of our economy. So we are having these conversations with our Latino men, educating them on the reality of the economy. We have an administration that has destroyed our economy. So we are confident that with this robust education and these programs that Mi Familia Vota in Nevada and across different states of where we have operations, we will educate the Latino men and present the bigger picture and the reality of what it's like to be a Latino under the Trump administration.
Next question, Christian.
Yeah. All right. This one, I'm going to go to Savannah Strott, and then we got one more question from Suzanne. Savannah Strott asks, can you provide some of the examples of voter suppression experienced in the Latino community and expand on that? I'm from the Nevada Independent, so any Nevada-specific examples, information would be great.
Yeah, maybe let me give a quick national perspective, and I'll pass it on to you, Cecia, for specific comments on in Nevada. We have seen in the context of voter suppression, there are different elements. Misinformation is one of them, and obviously from the White House, we have seen President Trump being the main voice providing misinformation when it comes to immigrants. Eduardo has been documenting a lot of this stuff over there in Arizona, misinformation that undocumented immigrants are gonna vote, and that is directly associated to voter intimidation, something that we have witnessed already in the different states, and something that we are trying to fight also on election day to make sure that is not happening, and early voting. We have seen in the past intimidation from immigration enforcement. The Migra trucks actually park outside of the of the voting spaces and locations intimidating our communities is something that we have seen in different spaces in the nation. The second one is longer lines, and this is research-based, in Latino neighborhoods waiting to vote than any other neighborhoods, especially white neighborhoods. A personal story that reflects the data in the nation. 4 years ago, I was in Orlando doing a border protection campaign in a heavily Puerto Rican / Latino neighborhood. The line to vote was 6 hours and a half on election day. It was 95 degrees, and there was no shade or water. And 15 minutes away from there, based on the data that we had because of our access to this data, it was a mostly white suburban neighborhood, and the line was 15 minutes through the day. This is something that is happening through the nation, and obviously it's another example of voter suppression. But Cecia, if you don't mind sharing something that you have witnessed over there in Nevada.
Yeah, so I'm going to share what I have, the conversations that I have had with community members through different events, being out in supermarkets. I would say that the misinformation, Hector, you are 100% right. Misinformation has been the biggest voter suppression tactic right now. And coming directly from the administration, I have had Latinos ask me if the election is canceled because they saw something on Facebook from something Donald Trump from an ad that is attacking vote by mail. Then they weren't sure if the election was canceled. This should be concerning for all of us. The misinformation is coming directly from the White House. It's coming directly from the person that should be defending our democracy. Other examples I have heard from the community is that they're afraid to go to the polls, not only because they are afraid of, we're still living under a pandemic. They're afraid to get sick, but also that even showing up to surrender their ballot, they are afraid to be accused of trying to vote twice. We know our community understands the process of voting. This intimidation is not going to work in Nevada. This intimidation is not going to work because this is when Mi Familia Vota is coming in. We are not only providing voter education in the ground, but we still have our hotline every day that is answering questions from our communities to make sure that they understand the voting process.
And you mentioned, sorry, I forgot at the opening to mention the hotline. Mi Familia Vota, because of the importance of this election, launched a historical hotline that is responding to all the questions related to civic participation, and that's 1-833-VOTAMOS. And the response that we have seen with the community is just amazing. Questions not only on voter registration by state, but early voting, the vote by mail, and just confusion that we are able to guide our community. Next question, Christian.
All right, I think this will be the last question because we got some time commitments that we have to meet, but Suzanne Gamboa from NBC News, can you analyze for us the outreach of both campaigns? We've heard from Republicans, they've been in the communities a year. Have you seen that? Did Biden camp start from behind, and is it still behind? Have the Lincoln Project, Bloomberg directed any investment to MFV, contracted with you, or invested in your work?
Yeah, so let me talk to the Biden/Trump analysis. And as you know, Suzanne, I've been extremely critical, not only of the Trump administration, but the Democrats and other spaces on what they have to do with the Latino community. I have always asked them, what is the percentage and number of Latinos and Latinas that you have in your campaign? What is the money that you are investing, and what percentage of that money is being invested in the Latino community? Are you working with Latino consultants, etc., to make sure that this is holistic? What I can tell you just based on facts that we as Mi Familia Vota have witnessed is, and I did an interview with you early on Prioridades 2020. That was the campaign to get all the candidates to talk to Mi Familia Vota about what they're planning to do in the community. And I asked them specific commitments on what they're planning to do on all the policy priorities and commit on camera. And we're using all this footage to put accountability campaigns for the candidates. I can tell you that the first one that responded of the candidates was Vice President Biden. And not only he responded, he proposed that we did a town hall. The town hall, I was very strong and critical of many issues, including deportations, immigration, etc. But we got very specific commitments from him. He committed on camera for the first time to separate himself on the issue of deportations with the Obama administration. He committed to do an immigration bill in the first 100 days. He committed to present a plan on Puerto Rico, something that he already did. He committed to do an economic plan for the Latino community, specifically something that we already got and we've been putting pressure, a plan on immigration, etc. On the Trump side, the White House has been totally shut down for the Latino community and the leadership. This is the first time that in my 25 years of advocacy, I have seen something in which the White House is totally shut down for an entire community. When I was chair of NHLA, the coalition of 46 national Latino organizations, we work with Democrats and we work with Republicans. From entry-level people every week, working with our teams, to meetings with the president all the time to discuss policy priorities. This has been the first administration in the history, probably, of the nation in which the Latino community or any serious Latino leader has had any access to debate policy priorities. In terms of investment, Susan, we are still being very aggressive, putting pressure on both. What we have seen from the Democrats is a little bit of a longer term investment, even though it's not enough. What we see from the Trump administration is more transactional, quick transaction of messaging and bombarding our community with miscommunication, accusations that are not related to policy priorities. We don't see any real solutions. We have seen in Florida, and Soraya has been documented a lot of these comparisons of Vice President Biden with Chavez and Castro, etc., and just miscommunication. But in terms of real strategic investment, it has been very limited and not the kind of investment that we want to see. We want to see investment that is attached to policy priorities that is going to advance the agenda of the Latino community. And this administration is the opposite of anything that we want to see in terms of policy priorities. The second part of your question is investment from Bloomberg. He invested a lot of money, but Mi Familia Vota hasn't seen a single penny of that money. So if you want to put out a tweet or something that the most important field operation in the nation haven't seen any of those pesos, we welcome that money to make sure that it's invested in the best possible way. Another strategic question is about the Lincoln Project. The Lincoln Project is getting a lot of national attention, and we're happy to see that because their main target is Donald Trump. I was extremely critical and strategic when we formed an alliance with them because they're Republicans. And for me and our organization, the top priority is to make sure that we are aligned with policy priorities. So we partner with them to focus on Donald Trump, only to get Donald Trump out of force from the Basta Trump campaign that we have. And what happens after the election, obviously, is going to, hopefully in a new environment, go back to the traditional elements of democracy to disagree on policy priorities and try to move agendas forward. They haven't invested a single penny in Mi Familia Vota. Obviously, that's another element that if they want to commit to the most serious organizations in the nation to advance our policy priorities, we're fully open to consider those opportunities. Christian, any other?
I believe that is it. I know you have a pending press event to get to, or press availability. But if any of our state directors would like to make any final comments, please do so. Hector, if you want to make a final comment as well.
Yeah, let's just do a quick final comment from all of our state directors. From my perspective is, as you can see, this is an organization that fully believes in the values. When I came into this organization almost a year ago, it was shocking in a good way to see that most of us are immigrants, some dreamers, some with undocumented families still. So what is happening in the nation is extremely personal. We're being devastated by this person in the White House that every single day of his administration and before decided to take a personal war with the Latino and immigrant community and exclude us from policy priorities or literally attack us from all the different policies and perspectives. This is personal, and Mi Familia Vota is coming with everything that we have, all of infrastructure, all of our dreams, all of our capacity to make sure that he's not reelected. And we have 2 weeks to make sure that the biggest embarrassment that we ever had as a democracy, as a nation, is not with us for the next 4 years. Let's do this for our democracy, let's do this for our communities, and let's do this for our nation. and Mi Familia Vota is coming full swing to make sure that we show how exemplary we are as immigrants and as Latinos protecting and defending our democracy. Soraya.
Yo quería dar un mensaje, y es el mensaje de desinformación que está tratando de enviar el presidente Trump y su comando de campaña a los latinos en función de Chávez. Yo soy venezolana, yo sé que es el socialismo, yo sé que es el comunismo. Y no traten de disfrazar a John Biden con unos disfraces que no le corresponden. Soy venezolana y entiendo perfectamente lo que significa y ha significado la devastación de lo que ha generado Chávez en mi país. Así que creo que están equivocados, por ese camino no van. Los latinos sabemos exactamente identificar cuáles son los sistemas. Y quisiera preguntarles a algunos de ustedes cómo les fue con el comunismo de Clinton, con la mayor tasa de empleo en la historia, cómo les ha ido con todos los gobiernos demócratas, supuestamente comunistas. No traten de desinformar a los latinos, creo que están equivocados, esa no es la vía. Y nosotros como latinos ya escogimos a nuestro candidato y ya votamos por una solución efectiva y por lo que este país, el mejor país del mundo, merece. Rescatar la majestad del presidente de la República, rescatar el respeto y la ética que había antes sobre el presidente, que nuevamente el presidente sea una persona respetada y admirada en el mundo y no el hazmerreír del planeta. Gracias.
Cecilia, you want to go next?
Yeah, I want to do some closing remarks from a very personal point of view. I joined Mi Familia Vota 2 years ago for this fight. I witnessed my community, I witnessed families tear apart, I witnessed families separated under this administration. This is a personal fight for me. And I couldn't be more proud as a Latina and as a woman to be part of an organization that has taken a strong stand against an administration that has made part of their agenda attacks on our community. So I want to thank everybody that has believed in us as Mi Familia Vota and me as a leader, and for the support of our community. And in 2 weeks, our voice will be heard stronger than ever.
All right, Eduardo, take it home.
Absolutely. Just lastly, reflecting on SB 1070 days 10 years ago and where we are today in Arizona has been very rewarding, and has been because of the fuel of our fear and our resiliency in the state to remain focused and to continue to invest in our communities and to build that political power. We had said enough of racist local politicians, and we're gonna say enough of this national racist politician that has insulted our communities time after time. We're gonna prioritize our communities' issues and ensure that there's an avenue for all of us to thrive in this great country. And we will continue to invest in the Latino community to ensure that our community can thrive, and ensure that our kids could also thrive, and ensure that folks that are coming after us as immigrants can also thrive in this country.
All right, I do not think we have any other questions. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. It's been a real pleasure. Have a good one, everyone.